Hello, 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 hello. Wondering why I am so excited today is because of you. Yes, you. You made it here once more to the Riverside Ghanaian SD Health Watch, and I am glad. Before we even start rolling, do you know? Let me tell you this. Just subscribe. Subscribe, like, what are you doing? Just do it right now and then share. We all need this message because our aim is to make sure you are healthy and your family is healthy and we are all healthy for the mission that God has given us. I am glad you have come my way as much as I have also come. And there is another day with Dr. Gregory Cheadle. And we are so privileged and happy to have you here once more. Thank you so much for making time with us again.
It's the Lord's working, and I'm glad to be here.
Right. I'm also glad you are here and healthy.
No, me too.
on God's mission once more.
Yes.
All right. So today we have something interesting for you coming your way in few minutes. And it's all about, let's all that eat meat hear this. Well, it's all about meat today. It's all about meat. And then we have Dr. Gregory here once more. The last time it was about milk. If you haven't watched that, please make sure you do watch that. It's so much stuffed with what you need to make the right choice when it comes to milk. And now here we are today and we are talking about meat. Yes, meat. Well, are we going to say meat madness this time too?
Yeah, meat madness. Yeah.
Yeah, that was on the lighter. All right. So, what's our concern about meat? Growing up in our lives as humans, all we know is about meat as source of protein. I wouldn't hesitate to say meat if I'm asked in any exam or whatever. What are the sources of protein? I wouldn't even think twice, right? There you go, meat everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. So why do we have concerns about meat now? There's a whole health revolution, if I should say, about meat. Making a whole lot about meat. Don't eat meat, eat meat, eat whatever, plant-based, whatever. So what's about meat? Is there a problem associated with meat?
There are a host of problems. If you took meat and you look at all the diseases that occurred, meat would be responsible for at least 80% of those illnesses. 80%. And let me tell you how I started with this. And so, when I was pre-med, actually before pre-med, I read some things by Ellen White. She was talking about meat, and she was talking about how, it's responsible for all these diseases. And she talked about how the animals were shipped and how exhausted they are and how they are when they're at slaughter. And so I went, a good friend of mine, Dr. Milton Mills from the documentary What the Health, we went to a slaughterhouse. And we went to a slaughterhouse. It was, if you want to get off meat, just go to a slaughterhouse.
Oh, wow.
But what we noticed is that the cattle were lined up, and you could see that they knew what was going to happen. They could sense what was before them. Their eyes got larger. They started breathing heavier. And what does that mean? That means that they're in the stress response at that point. So their bodies are kicking out a whole lot of cortisol, the stress hormone, norepinephrine, and so on. And so, I started thinking, then I started doing research, and it was just amazing to me the number of diseases that are responsible for the consumption of milk. The consumption of meat. One thing is, humans are not designed to eat meat. That's the whole thing. There is nothing about a human being that's says that it's designed to eat meat, even though we've been told this forever because, you know, those who are in favor of eating meat will say, well, we've been eating it forever and ever, the caveman and all this other stuff. But there is nothing, absolutely nothing about the human body that says that it was designed to eat meat. Now, the kicker is, you know, when you look at a human being, if you take a naked human being, put him out there in the middle of nowhere, and have him eat this animal, first of all, he'd have to kill it and then eat it on the spot. There's nothing about us that would allow us to do that. You know, if you look at our teeth are not designed to eat flesh. You know, we have molars, we have flat teeth, we don't have canines. What they call a canine is not a canine. A canine is like this, and it's pointed and sharp. You know, it grafts and then it pierces. We don't have that.
We don't have all that. Wow. So this is Dr.
I'm just getting started.
This is Dr. Gino doing his own thing once again, right? He's just proving everything to tell us that we don't need to eat meat. Wow. You know, what actually got to me was when you were talking about you being, seeing the animals being lined up for slaughter and all that in the slaughterhouse. And I was actually thinking you were going to do something emotional with that. And then boom, you went into hormones and all that. Right, so that's a touching one. And this is what I want to ask. Do you think, are we not doing plants the same harm if we choose to go the plants way? Because it's about eating plants and not eating meat or something else. Then are we not going to harm plants, which are producing oxygen?
To harm plants? Plants tend not to have a central nervous system. They tend not to give birth other than seeds. And so it's quite a stretch to put plants on the same level as animals. You know, some people have made that argument. Some people have said that, you know, plants have feelings. They get hurt. I don't necessarily.
It's getting interesting out there.
You know, they don't bleed you know, red blood cells and white blood cells. They don't have defense mechanisms like we do. So I tend not to put plants on the same level. And there are some who may, but the problem if you do that, you know, God told us what to eat. In Genesis, He told us, He said, these are yours to eat.
Right.
The fruits, the vegetables. So, well, the vegetables came later, but the fruit, the vegetables, nuts, so forth and so on. He told us to eat those. He didn't say, oh, you can't eat those because they have feelings. And so there's a world of difference between what God told us to eat and what He told us not to eat. And even when, if you want to throw in the biblical argument about eating meat, what did God say? He said it in such a way that He was hoping by the time you followed all of His commands, you'd be sick and tired of it and just throw it away. But what did He say? He said the clean and unclean. Then He said no fat. Then He said no blood.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yes, He said all of those things. And by the time you do that, it's like, forget it. I don't want it.
Wow.
And that's what He was hoping. But instead, you know, we will do the clean and unclean, some of us. With respect to the fat and blood, we don't do that.
We don't do that. Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see if we can find some windows here. I would also want you to share your comments, dear viewer, right there in the comment section. We'll be glad to answer to that. Given this, let's see if we can find a window. Which meat are you talking about? Can I eat some meat and not eat some meat? Or are you talking about all meat? Like fish, poultry, all those ones? Red meat, white meat?
Well, biblically, I'm talking about the clean and unclean, which the clean would be, there's a whole list of it.
A whole list, yeah.
And then you have the unclean, which infamously is the pig. That's the main one. So I'm talking about those. And then with respect to animals, if you look at all the clean animals and fish and so forth and so on, I would lump them still all together with animal protein.
Oh, yeah. So even the clean animals?
The clean animals, yeah.
Right.
Because what you have to understand that what you're eating is the flesh of another species. You know, for instance, when you go into the hospital and you need a kidney or a liver or lung from another person, what do they put you on? They put you on these anti-rejection. So imagine that's within species.
Oh.
Now just think if you go out of species and you have that in your body.
Oh. A foreign substance.
And so why do we have all these autoimmune diseases now? there's something called neural 5G. So what happens with neural 5G is that you consume animal flesh, okay? Animals have neural 5G. Humans don't, but animals do. They have a different G. And so when we consume animal flesh, that neural 5G goes into the cell, and then it comes out. It expresses itself outwardly. And guess what? The body says, that is not him. That's not
It's
her.
foreign.
That's foreign.
Right.
And so we start getting into a host of autoimmune diseases. That's just the tip of the iceberg with respect to autoimmune diseases.
Oh, right. So, dear one, I know you're actually with me on this one. This is it. So if we are admonished to go the plant-based diet, how do we make up for the nutrients that we know, the famous B12 and all those omega-3 and all that? How do we make up?
Well, first of all, the B12 is about the only argument that holds any water. But I mean, B12 is a supplement. Even animals don't get B12. I mean, they get B12 from the same sources that we do. It's from the grounds, from bacteria. And so it's not like it's naturally occurring within the animal. No, it's not. And so the other nutrients, it's a balancing act. You say, well, I'm missing these nutrients. How many nutrients are you burning up to have that garbage in your system in the first place? Getting the nutrients from meat is like eating sewage to get water. You're taking in all this garbage from this animal, this sick animal, and then you want to say that I'm getting all these nutrients and so forth and so on.
Right.
Technically, you're getting them, but at what cost? You
Right.
get the nutrients, but you also get the
You also get
disease.
the disease. Well, we don't want the disease.
We don't want the
just
disease.
the nutrients.
Ellen
Yeah.
White has made this case over and over and over and over again. But we're so hard at it, just like the children of Israel, clamoring for quail.
Oh.
If I could just go back to Egypt and get those things. Yeah.
Right. So I would pass this argument across. So does that mean being on plant-based diets minus meat would take us away from all those conditions that you have mentioned, or there is still a chance that we could still get those conditions
Well,
with blood vessels and all those stuff?
Okay. Just because you're plant-based doesn't mean that you're going to be healthy.
Right.
If I ate Oreos every day, I'm plant-based. You see what I'm saying? But no, generally speaking, if you eat healthy, if you eat a healthy plant-based diet, you won't get the diseases. And the major disease that we have in the United States and throughout the world is heart disease.
Right.
And you've seen this.
I
So here we have a plant-based vessel.
Wow, interesting.
Look how
so you
clean
mean
that
the
is.
blood vessel?
Yes, this is the blood vessel. Now, those who want to eat meat, this is their blood vessel. This is the basis of heart disease. This is the basis of strokes. This is the base of kidney disease. Okay? When you have atherosclerosis and arterial sclerosis, that's it right there.
Wow.
Okay?
Oh, viewer. I don't know if this is a good news to you or not. Probably you have a chunk of meat in your freezer and you would be contemplating what to do with it.
Yeah.
Then let's see how it goes by the time we end this discussion. And I believe you're going to make a serious lifestyle change when it comes to plant-based diet. So how about plant-based diet? So if you say minus meat, why should you have processed whatever, looking like meat, something? Are they trying to kill our psychological makeup by forming meat? Is that healthy as well?
Well, I think that when you look at creation, God created all these beautiful animals for us to appreciate, not to slaughter. And so when I go plant-based, it just sickens me to see a food item that's plant-based that looks like an animal. There was one, it was a chicken leg.
Chicken nugget.
Yeah,
That's the famous one.
I don't want to, the thought of having a dead animal in me just sickens me. And I think it's just as stupid to have a plant-based chicken leg as it is for me to go to a restaurant and demand that my steak look like broccoli. It's just as silly,
Right.
you know.
Right. That's interesting. So if someone, it's also difficult because if we have grown up being on meat all our lives and just withdrawing, if it were to be something else, we would have had withdrawal symptoms, right?
Well, you would.
Yeah.
You
so
would.
how do we make up for that? So
Well, you said something very important. You said withdrawal. There are actually chemicals within meat that are addicting. And so when you have those in your system, you've been eating meat for all these. I'm like, when I was eating meat, I was a poster boy for meat eating.
right.
I loved hamburgers and hot dogs. I had all that stuff, even oxtails,
Right.
liver. I ate all that stuff. But what happens is that when you make the change, your gut bacteria has to change as well. And so if you do it speedily, there may be an issue. But if you take the time to transition, you'll be okay. And so those are things you have to consider if you want to make the switch. But we can get everything that we need and more by switching to a plant-based diet.
Oh, interesting. So how about if we actually have animals that are raised in a way that is not like you saw in the
Right.
slaughterhouse?
Right.
Do you think it stands the same problem?
Without a doubt. It's like, do you want to get hit by a clean car or a dirty car?
None of them.
Exactly.
None of the above.
Exactly. You don't want it. And see, the issue is, when you have your particular cow that's been out there, having fun all day long, running around. When it's slaughtered, you still have another set of issues you have to deal with, and that is on the cellular level. You have cellular activity that when you have an increase in the amount of animal protein, that shifts. So we have, remember Pac-Man? He would go around gobbling. So we have within our systems Pac-Men that go around gobbling things. But what happens is that when we start eating animal flesh, those animal proteins turn those things off. So instead of going around, picking up and telling these cells to die and so forth and so on, it tells the cell to grow. It tells cancer cells to grow. You have mTOR, you have CHOP, you have PERK, you have CD36, P21, P27, P58, a whole list of these enzymes that work in concert with keeping the body healthy. But when we ingest animal protein, those things go awry, and so cancer cells start growing in number, and lo and behold, we come down with any number of cancers.
Wow, interesting. So, viewer, I don't know how much you are following, but the whole discussion has been between choosing meat or going plant-based. And Dr. Gregory has actually made so much good stance and so much good points, evidence-based, on you going for a plant-based diet. I think we wouldn't hesitate to say that. Whether it's a clean animal, clean raised animal or not, you would want to go for what God has actually given us. It's not going to be easy if you have to make that change, not so drastic, but in transition, in bits.
Well, yeah, you pray about it and the Lord leads you. But you have to understand too that the animals are fed other animals. So there's something called rendering. So you see the animals that are killed on the street, get hit by a car,
right,
and so forth and so on.
Like the food chain, right?
They are rendered into these protein pieces, protein niblets, whatever you want to call them. And those are fed to animals. So you have an animal that's consuming animals with those diseases. If you ask any veterinarian, they're saying that dogs and cats are coming down with more cancers than they've ever seen before. That's because they're ingesting that stuff as well. They're eating dead animals that were sick, and so it comes into them, then it goes into the eater as well.
Finally, let's talk about the cost. Going to the grocery shops and looking at the meat corner and looking at the plant-based corner, it's hard on the pocket, right? And so you see all the rows of drumstick chicken, and it's just like $6 or something. And then you just pick broccoli and it's like two something package, and you're like, ooh. You would want to go for the meat because it's also cheaper on the pocket. So how do we go around that?
I don't know that there's anything cheaper than beans and rice. You know, when you talk about, produce is relatively inexpensive compared. If you go look at pieces of meat, those things are expensive. I was like, there's no one in the world I'm going to pay, $30 for this little thing. No. So, and then that's just one set of costs. Then you have to factor in the cost of your health. How much is a doctor visit? How much is an ER visit? How much is a surgery? How much is a day in the hospital? Those are costs that you have to throw in as well. How much are the medications? You talk about expensive. Don't get sick from eating meat, girl. No.
That I am actually trying to get all the points that I have to get. But now, I know you also have points that you would want to talk about. So I am expecting that in the comment section. It has been a time with Dr. Gregory Chido on meat versus plant-based diet. And by now, I know you would choose what is right. You would choose what is godly. You would choose good health. And then you would choose the purpose of God for your life. This conversation actually has to continue in our homes, right? In our homes and with the very person you share this video with. The argument has come up and then we have listened in, and you would want to choose what is right. So let's do what is right, right, Dr. Greg?
Oh, do what's right. There's benefits. God gives us benefits when we do what he wants us to do.
Right.
We suffer detriment when we do what we want to do, which is not in his will. And what's better than being healthy?
Right.
What is better?
Healthy. So now it's meat, no meat. Meat, no meat. Continue the discussion. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, our viewers. And we will see you some other time. Make a date with us every time on our Health Watch show, and you would find the best of education that you want on your diet as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.